Hey traders, checking into the stock market today. Bears out in full force, all major sectors dropping to the lows at the same time. Potentially weekly lower highs being set. I'll show you what I'm watching for in the short term. I'm bearish on some time frames and bullish on others. All right, so the consolidation that we saw on the futures chart overnight was fairly healthy. We held that EMA 12 support and we headed into the morning with higher opens. As I was doing my whiteboard preparation for the morning, I looked at the S&P 500 on the 4 hour, and at that point, probably 6 a.m. So we were trading around here, and I looked at it and I said, it's fairly bullish. We might have another bull day today. And then I went to the Nasdaq and I looked at the 4 hour there and I said, I am no longer bullish. So what was the distinct difference? The Nasdaq had pulled back further and had a lot more space for a 4 hour lower high to be the result of this higher low that we had seen. And so I knew that even if the S&P 500 broke resistance, the Nasdaq would have a lot of ground to make up if it was going to break resistance as well. And essentially, I could say that the only way that both of them are going to break their resistance is if it's a very convincing full bull control kind of day, which is obviously a possibility, but less likely. So I then adopted a bearish tone on the day. And essentially, I was only trading bearish or not trading this morning. And during the live stream, we were watching the key resistance test on the S&P 500, and we had a double top form. We broke resistance, but just barely. And after that resistance break, it was a 2-minute downtrend that started to shift the momentum. So we reject from resistance initially, pull back and set a 2-minute higher low. That's healthy. There's no red flags there. We then reject and roll over. As soon as you confirm that 2-minute downtrend, bears gain confidence on their resistance rejection. And at that point in time, the Nasdaq was rolling over and not close to breaking resistance. So the Nasdaq did the same thing. Its 2-minute consolidation was more significant, and then it confirmed the 2-minute downtrend. So essentially, as I've said many times, I want to see the Nasdaq leading bull moves if I'm going to have confidence and trust them. It doesn't mean we can't go up if the Nasdaq is not leading. But again, if I'm making tallies in the bull column or the bear column, this morning there were more in the bear column than there were in the bull column. And the fact that the Nasdaq was lagging, it had further distance to cover to break resistance. The 2-minute consolidation was more significant. These were all things that started to add up for the bears. The final straw was XLF was easily our lead bull sector on the morning. And you can see the first 20 minutes of trading, we blew through the high of yesterday. The high of yesterday was 32.59, and we broke it by over 0.5%. So there was follow through. And so we pulled back, and as soon as we hit a new low of the day, that is your strongest player on Team Bull rolling over and losing it. And from that point forward, the bears had full control of the day as all of our major sectors were hitting low of the day at the same time, and we didn't do anything but see little 5 and 15-minute bounces on the way down. So I had some SPXS, some SQQQ. I shorted XLE on a 15-minute lower high. We'll look at that at the end of the video. And did play a little bit of a bounce in the biotech sector into the end of the day. But other than that, just mostly sticking bearish. And that's now 2 days in a row where that has been mostly my direction in terms of the trades that I was taking. So now what? Is this our weekly lower high being set on our Nasdaq and the S&P 500? Maybe. It's entirely possible. We were not in a daily uptrend. So if we're going to see any bounce follow through on the weekly time frame, we must confirm a daily trend change. Now, the fact that the dollar is holding support, the fact that I'm looking for the VIX to give us a weekly higher low, the fact that we had all major sectors hitting the low of the day at the same time today, these are all reasons that I am less confident that bulls can pull off a daily trend change. I'm going to give them a chance to try and pull it off. I'm going to be open to that possibility, but I'm watching all these little clues, many of which I just mentioned, and they will have to convince me, they will have to prove to me that bulls can hold the lows and break that current high of the bounce. So just looking at SPY would have to hold 362.17, which is currently $18 to the downside, and we would have to break 393.16, which is currently $13 to the upside. So we're approaching the 50% retracement from the bounce that we just saw, and it was an ideal bear day. Because again, if I were going to have more confidence that the bulls could follow through with a daily trend change, it would be the kind of day where QQQ leads the way to the downside, but XLF and XLV hold on much better, and so SPY is not as weak as QQQ, and that would be showing us some rotation going on. But again, when everything is dropping at the low at the same time, it shows us money leaving the market. And that was the case today. Close at the low of the day. So there are names where I am scouting daily higher lows because they have a lot more space to work with. And so a name like NIO or a name like XBI, which we will look at, possible they hold the recent lows even if the S&P 500 breaks support, as long as that bear break lacks follow through. So I'm scouting daily higher lows in names like NIO and XBI, and I'm scouting hourly lower highs and everything tomorrow. If we open higher, I'm scouting hourly lower highs. If we open lower, maybe I'll play some oversold bounces. That remains to be seen. But you look at any individual name, and there's a lot of space for lower highs. Amazon, there's so many names today that headed into the open. Again, another reason why I had my bear hat on was because look at this pullback from yesterday. Look at the open, and we were opening and still 4% plus from breaking the high of yesterday. So we knew the most likely scenario on Google and Amazon and all these tech names that pulled back from their high of the day hard yesterday. The most likely scenario was an hourly lower high on the morning. Even if the bulls had controlled the first 2 hours of trading, an hourly lower high would still be the most likely scenario, because the only way that it wouldn't be would be if the Amazon bulls showed up and went 4% after the bell rang, which, as we know, is not a high probability for a name that has as large a market cap as Amazon. Amazon rolled over and got crushed. Tightening 2-day range here. 2-day time frame for Amazon. Low, high of the bounce, double bottom, lower high, and we're watching for this tightening range to break. Tesla is tightening 2-day range. CCJ is a much larger range, but it's tightening up. There's a lot of these names. Google tightening up on the 2-day time frame, came right up to resistance and rejected. Now we're heading back down towards support. So we're watching all these tightening ranges on the names that have them. So QQQ, daily consolidation underway, close at the low of the day. Can the bulls hold 268 and break 296.58? If they cannot, we never confirm the daily uptrend, and bulls don't have any confidence. We got a downtrend resistance line to be keeping an eye on. That rejected the price as well. So bears in short-term control, scouting hourly lower highs to be the result of the next bounce. As I mentioned, NIO. Why am I scouting a daily high or low? Because anything above 1584 is a daily high or low. NIO had a short attack on it today. You wouldn't know just by looking at the daily candle. It held on real well, all things considered. But NIO has so much space to work with. We can drop another 25% and still be in a daily higher low pattern. So an ideal day for the bulls, or a setup for the bulls, would be holding daily EMA 12. This consolidation will remain healthy in terms of its retracement size if daily EMA 12 support is maintained. I'm watching the hourly downtrend as my guide for when a daily higher low is shaping up. If the bulls regain an hourly trend in their favor, the daily higher low is likely shaping up. That's NIO. I'm watching the same for XBI. So XBI daily EMA 12 is on watch. So names that were more bullish and have more space to work with, daily higher lows are the most likely scenario. But even on these names, again, hourly lower highs. XBI, anything under the high of today is an hourly lower high. There's a wall of resistance in the upper 77s that we rejected from, and then we rolled over into daily consolidation and into hourly oversold conditions. Semiconductors, weaker weekly bounce. Is that a weekly bear flag? Sure looks like it. AMD is the weaker of the major semiconductors that I look at. It's testing its low. NVDA has a bit more space to work with, but it is still weak as well. So semiconductors had one day, Friday, where they gained some strength against the S&P 500, but very short-lived, and we're right back to being bearishly correlated. How do I know? I just know. SMH divided by SPY shows us that clear downtrend where we have been weaker than the S&P 500 pretty much the entire month of June. So Tesla, the bulls must hold 626. Again, I like the 2-day time frame for clarity. Anything above 626 will be a higher low. We're tightening up over the last month, and we're looking for a break of this tightening range in early July. Hourly downtrend is our guide. Look at all the space that bulls have to work with, or bears, I should say. Tons of space. We can bounce 5% and still be looking for an hourly lower high. So into tomorrow, I'm scouting hourly lower highs. And again, I might have to wait for it. But if I wanted to determine the most probable scenarios, that's it. The most probable scenario on an hourly time frame for me is that an hourly lower high will form the next time we bounce. I will then zoom in and use 5-minute trends to help pinpoint those hourly lower highs being set. I'll use EMA resistances to help pinpoint. I'll watch retracement size of the bounce to help determine whether it's a bear flag or not. These are all things that I utilize to determine most likely scenarios and to determine the trades that I want to take and the trades that I will wait for. Healthcare. Pull back. We never change the daily trend bullish. Stair step pattern. Google TheChartGuys stair step if you don't know what it is. Bear break at 128.79. Some solid follow through, 1% to the downside today from that signal. And if anything is going to change for the bulls, we must confirm a trend change with a higher low and higher high. So just like XBI and NIO, I can look at XLV and say the most likely scenario is a daily higher low. How do I know when it's being set? Everything that I just said for the hourly, but on a different direction and on different time frames. I'm watching the hourly downtrend as a guide for when a daily higher low is being set. I'm watching retracement size. I'm watching EMA support. I'm watching how much bear volume is there. These are all clues to help shape up when the higher low is being set. Financial sector. So it started real strong, but rolled over. Weekly lower high, is it being set? Maybe. It's definitely a weekly bounce at this point. Anything above 30.68 is a daily higher low. But it's not a convincing bounce bigger picture at this point. IWM. Weekly still in a downtrend. So again, I was bullish last week, but knew I'd be scouting weekly lower highs, and they are potentially forming. If we have another day like today, tomorrow, it'll be very convincing that they are shaping up. Pretty much if we see another day this week, how many trading days? 3 more left. So if we see another day this week where all of our major sectors are at the low of the day at the same time, for me, the probability that bulls can confirm a daily trend change will drop a good bit. IWM, just looking for an hourly lower high to be the result of the next bounce. Biotech sector. So I liked this falling wedge into the end of the day. We were seeing relative strength where S&P 500 and the Nasdaq were really getting crushed and just really started to follow through for the bears. And so how do I recognize bullish correlation in the heat of the moment? And again, I didn't look at the correlation chart once. I'm just watching SPY and XBI. And so if you look at SPY on the 2-minute time frame during that point in time, so right here we hit a low at 2:06 p.m. Eastern. What was happening on the S&P 500 at 2:06? We were trading right here. Big candle. Look at the next 4 minutes. Convincing bear follow through. What happens to XBI the next 4 minutes? Nothing. We trade sideways. So we trade sideways on XBI for 2, 4, 6, 8 minutes. During that point in time, the S&P 500 does this. Then look at what happens on this bear flag, very weak 6-minute bounce. The base of support that was being established sees strength. The big bull move on XBI happened from 220 up until 230. What was happening on the S&P 500, 220 to 230? It is this green candle, the 6-minute bounce, but then even 2 big red candles and a fresh low of the day. And while the S&P 500 hit a new low of the day, XBI is up here. So that was recognizing, number one, a pattern that I like to trade, a 2-minute falling wedge, recognizing that XBI's 15-minute RSI was approaching teens at that point in time. It was in the teens. hourly first oversold conditions after a very significant daily bull move. All of those things are why I played XBI bullish in that spot. It took a lot of maneuvering, and that is common for how I trade falling wedges. So for example, I make an entry, I sell half, I stop out, break even, I make a re-entry, I exit half, we pull back, we hold support, I re-enter the half that I sold. I probably traded 8 different buys and sells of LABU while this pattern was forming before the bull move took place. It takes a lot of active management to stay in full control of a wedge while you're trading it and while it continues to form. So that was a nice day maker into the end of the day. And essentially it was just me recognizing I'm not going to sell my SPXS and my SQQQ. I'm going to hold those, but I know that if we see hourly bounces in the broader market, that my account is going to drop in value because I have a bear lean and more bear exposure, only bear exposure at that point aside from long-term no touch. And so I said, all right, well, I'll try and play a bounce to offset the drop that my account would see if the broader market bounces. The broader market didn't bounce, so as my bearish positions didn't lose value, but I gained value from this biotech sector bounce. And in the end, it ended up going about 2%, 1.8% off its low, which means 4% plus on the ETF. So it was just recognizing a bullish correlation. It's the only reason I was looking to play XBI bullish rather than somebody else. The VIX weekly equilibrium continues to tighten up. Is this our weekly higher low being set for a continued tightening range? Could be. It's only one green day, so it's not convincing yet, but we're watching for that possibility, just like we're watching for the inverse possibility that our indices are setting potential weekly lower highs. Follow through definitely needed, but this tightening range is going to be key for July when it breaks. The dollar, another point in favor of broader market bears. Dollar was strong today. We never broke 103.41. The weekly chart remains strong for the dollar bulls. 10-year, same deal. Weekly chart is remaining strong. Oil, daily bounce following through. Watching for a daily lower high, anything under 116.58 inventory report tomorrow. Size of the bounce at this point is big enough for a potential daily trend change to try and shape up, and we're continuing to hold weekly EMA 12. This run is not done as long as weekly EMA 12 is support. We would have to confirm a weekly downtrend for that to change notably. So XLE, I was keeping an eye out for a daily lower high. We hit EMA 12 resistance. At the end of my live stream, I noted the hourly RSI was over 80. The 15-minute RSI was over 80. And we were hitting previous price levels. Look at this double top, 76.91, 76.96. Where did we top out? 76.90. There was a real nice top fish at $77 in overbought RSI conditions coming off of a big drop on the daily time frame. So I didn't grab that short, unfortunately, but I got the 15-minute lower high here. Entered bearish at about 76.10, I should say. And then when we did not break the low of the day here, I exited the entirety of my short. Why would I do that? The market was extremely weak. Why would I exit there? We held the low of the day. The broader market kept dropping. Relative strength stood out to me. And so I said, all right, well, I'm going to exit and not swing this short, and I'll be looking for an hourly lower high tomorrow to see if bears can confirm the hourly downtrend and set the daily lower high. Things were clicking today on all cylinders. It's the kind of day where everything just makes sense in how all the time frames are relating. Correlations are nice and clear. It'd be nice if all days were like today, but that's certainly not the case. I'd say this year it's been less frequent than the year prior, but a good one today. So we'll keep an eye on the hourly trends as our guides. I know what I'm looking for on the names that I'm going to focus on going forward over the next couple of days. And it all depends on how we shape up. So for example, look at how different this scenario is. This is why I don't do much prep work aside from this video. And now I don't think about the markets until 6 a.m. tomorrow morning. If we gap down open, I will look to make bullish entries for an hourly bounce. I will sell partial positions on an initial bounce, and I'll stick my stop under the low. And I'll do so on the names where I'm scouting daily high or lows, whether it's NIO or XBI or whoever. And that gives me the possibility to nail a daily high or low. If we see an hourly bounce and then we drop to lower lows, I stop out. I was wrong, no daily high or low set, and a small loss, no biggie. If we open higher, I'm looking in the complete opposite direction. I'm going to be looking short for the hourly lower highs to be set. So how we open is going to completely dictate the direction that I'm looking tomorrow. And I have no idea how we're going to open. All right, do good things. Appreciate you tuning in. Hope you had a good day too.
Only 8 years?
Only 8 years.
Could have been 10, you know? Could have been 10. Good price shot, right? So what do you got going in there?
You wouldn't know it, but these are...
There? No, I'm
Yeah, well,
just
the fork helps you break open.
as I go.
You can see it.
Yeah, I see it.
It's
Just
right
wondering.
Snap it in half, bro.
I'm wondering if
That actually was selling the grocery store for.
so you would just did
No, I would do this.
I'm at a much higher level, like up here. Yeah. The vault goes pretty clearly. Yeah. It's like ceiling